Well, where do we go from here? There was a moment in Israel's story that might give us some insight into our own. It was that moment right after Pharaoh let Israel go, but Israel didn't know where to go. They were coming out of captivity, but captivity was all they'd known for 400 years. So even though they were coming out, things would not return to normal. Here's how the Bible puts it. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, even though that was the shorter road. No, God led them along a route through the wilderness. One translation puts it, God did not lead them down the straight road. He led them down a crooked road, a longer, more circuitous route, turned an 11-day journey into 40 years. In fact, God led them straight into the wilderness. And this is where we find ourselves today. It feels like we're slowly coming out of captivity like Israel, but like Israel, we don't know what's next. For some of us, this has been a longer, slower, harder, and heavier captivity than we imagined. And now that we're coming out, we wonder, how do I get on with my life? What about my job? What about my family? And how will I stay healthy? And why did God allow this in the first place? If He is so powerful and He is so good, then why does He lead us down the crooked road? It is here on this road we must learn the meaning of providence. Providence is the place where the sovereignty of God and human responsibility meet. In providence, God goes ahead of us, and we discover it only later. We run out of sources, we run into trouble. Then we discover in that trouble that God has already been there and left things behind for us. This is exactly how Israel walked out of the wilderness. Every time they ran into trouble or they ran out of something, they discovered God had already been there. Whether it was manna from heaven or quail from the winds or water from a rock, they knew when they found it that God had been there first and He'd left it behind for them. This is how providence works. God makes a promise and then we believe it on the basis that He said it and He said it to us. So God's promises and our faith walk side by side, like two legs, each one leading, then following the other till we walk our way out. But we must not confuse the crooked road with a broken promise. They're not the same thing. It is on the crooked road that God keeps His promises. So instead of looking ahead like everyone else is doing, maybe look behind and see what God has already done to set you up for this time. And look around at what He is doing still every day to make you stable. And here's what you'll discover. God's been keeping every one of His promises, hasn't He? Even when you don't like the environment. This is where we are, somewhere on our way out, yet somewhere on the crooked road, heading straight into the wilderness, yet safe in the providence of God. Faith's calling is to live between the promise made and the promise kept. Behind us is the great no longer. Ahead of us is the great not yet. God has promised and God will act. Christ has come once and Christ will come again. However long the waiting takes, it is only the gap between the lightning and the thunder. So let's not pray for clarity. Let's pray for trust.